are so grateful that you made time to come out today and see the results of our week-long charrette for East Old Town Master Plan. How many of you were able to come to different events throughout the week? So we only maybe got one or two that are seeing this for the first time. That's great. We appreciate your time. I think you're going to be very impressed by where we are and probably a little bit surprised if you participated throughout the week. A lot of the feedback that you all gave is directly shown in what you're going to see today. And I just want to thank Toole and Dewberry, our stormwater partners, for spending another great week with us. And I will hand it over to Ian up first to get started on where we are. Thank you, Ian.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I want to start off with just a bit of perspective for a second. I think that for those of you who have been involved in the process since the beginning, there's been a lot of stuff been talked about. We talked about Old Town, we talked about Main Street up to City Hall, we talked about Uptown up by Lawrenceville Highway and Killian Hill. We talked about the existing park and the property that the city purchased to the east. So we've talked about a lot of things. And I think we've got to, I'm just giving a little preview of some of the things that are coming up. I think we've got to a good consensus that we really got to get that Main Street ticking. You know, it's empty on one side and it's mostly empty on the other. So that has emerged as the most important thing for Old Town. And the other things are important, but they can be planned and discussed over time. But what we needed to do was to think about all those places that might change, because we have to anticipate the stormwater needs. And we have to start preparing for that today so we don't paint ourselves into a corner. So some of the things you're going to be seeing are not necessarily needed for Main Street. In fact, we can do Main Street without a lot of the major stormwater changes. But we need to start thinking about them to restore the park, restore the creek, and position us so that Uptown, for example, can change without creating stormwater problems. And so we have a word for this when you think about all the things that are going on and prepare for them now. We call it planning. so we're doing planning. And that way, over time, when developers come in to redevelop parts of Uptown, the stormwater is already thought through. And that just makes a lot of sense. And it positions Lilburn economically ahead of places that aren't doing that. So, and it's less expensive over time, and it's more effective. Better for the environment, better for business. And so even though we talked about a lot of things, we're going to be focusing on the Main Street area and positioning the whole area for future change. And you'll see in the presentation that there were some folks who didn't like certain parts and other people that liked other parts, but a lot of that will be settled during future planning exercises. But the main things that we needed to get achieved this week and the past weeks, I think we've achieved, which I think is a really big success, is to get the direction for the stormwater done now and allow us to get on with our main priority, which is the Main Street. So, with that, so those are the folks you've probably seen over the past little while. It's the team of Dewberry, who are the stormwater experts, which you'll hear from, and ourselves, we're urban design folks from Toole Design Group. And this is what we did over the week. We recapped what happened, and that's where, or we're going to recap what happened this week. We're going to share with you what we heard and saw. We're going to be talking about that new 22-acre parcel that the city owns just next to the park. A lot of stuff relies on other things. Like you can't do the Main Street without doing a little stormwater area, and we're going to go through how those relate so you can see what's happening and why it's happening. And so that's about prioritizing things. And then we're going to talk about what's going to happen after this, and then we're going to have an open discussion. Okay, the recap. So there's our schedule. So we met with a lot of property owners, potential developers for the Main Street. We met with a lot of citizens and groups and your city commission, a lot of staff people. The common thread that linked all of the discussions together, even though we may not agree on little details about plans, is that everybody we met wants the best for the city. And so we're all pulling in the same direction. We have to sort things out, but we're all wanting good things to happen. We had a really fun on-site event out by out in the old concrete plant. And I don't know if people had ever been there before. So the reason we had it there was because we wanted people to experience what it's like and how sort of lonely it is, and how we need to make some changes to make that a vibrant, important part of the city. And then we worked here. We met with a lot of different stakeholders and property owners. We went out in the park and we met with various groups and we walked around. We talked about the things that are threatening the stream right now and what has to happen to fix the stream. We talked about some of the stormwater concerns that need addressing. So it was a good reality check to do right in the space, which was really great. And then we had an open studio. People came in and saw what we were doing and asked us questions, which was great. And and so here we are at the final presentation to kind of wrap up where we're at now and where we're heading. So here's a couple of pictures. This is the tent that we're working in out in the old concrete area. Then we did site tours and walks. We showed people what we were drawing with. Plenty of discussions and plenty of feedback, which is really, really, really helpful for us. And now I think Quinn is going to go over what we heard, and you'll see these maps all around the room. She was there. She's looked at all these things, and she's going to give you a synopsis of what everyone heard. And that way, you know what other people are saying and so forth. So I think I'm looking forward to hearing this too. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Quinn. I just want to say thank you to those who have continuously showed up and provided input, and for those who made time this morning. We rely on public input to inform what we're doing, right? We're not the residents here, we're not going to live here. We need to know what you all want. So for those who were there for that first Monday night, one of the first questions we asked you to think about was what was a key goal that should be kept in mind with this project. And so we're looking at a word cloud, so the larger the word, that means that word was repeated and kept reappearing. So it's very clear that of everybody who came, and I think it was maybe 35 or so people, that community was very clearly a shared value, nature and connectivity. Those words really stand up there. We also talked about things that people didn't like or that they were concerned about. I know we were showing a parkway and there was lots of concerns about that park cut through. And so we realized that there was a concern about people behaving in a certain way, treating that as a way to kind of speed through, cut around traffic. But we want to think about that parkway as serving the community for access, the connectivity that we saw earlier. And so that's Toole Design specializes in designing beautiful, safe streets, right? But we also saw a lot of concerns around the housing and the roundabout that's proposed along Killian Hill Road. And so those are things that definitely would require additional study. And but I want us to look at, I think this next cloud is really interesting. We can see there's a lot more words. This highlights everything that was mentioned in terms of what people wanted to see in the current, or in the 22-acre area, but also what wasn't on that plan that they wanted to see. So lots of different types of recreational activities, walking, eating, lots of great ideas, but we can see in the center, the largest, those words, Lake Kilburn. There's a lot of excitement around Lake Kilburn, venue space, and then nature. And a lot of the other words around it kind of tie back to nature And then especially the first words that we saw, which was community. And like Ian was saying, Dewberry's here because we want to think about everything holistically and how we can treat stormwater as a whole and not piecemeal by project. And so we're gonna get into that in terms of how we feel that we need to approach the different projects that we'll talk about. But I'm gonna pass it to you. Thanks, Jennifer, to talk about what was seen during this trip.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Young. I'm a stormwater engineer with Dewberry, and fun fact, I actually grew up in Wilburn, so this is my hometown, and I'm really excited to be here with all of y'all and see the cool things that are happening. After gaining all of your input and feedback, one of the things that we did as a team was go out and experience the community the way that y'all experience it. See your values in real time and really integrate that into what we're doing. So we went and spent time in the park, which is a cornerstone of this community and a really key piece, and something that a lot of people love. So we went and spent some time in here, saw a lot of enjoyment in here. We were also overlapped with the Girl Scout summer camp, which is cool for me because I actually went to the Wilburn camp when I was a kid. Lots of memories, flashbacks. Saw a lot of people really enjoying this trail and the green space. And then diving kind of into more of the stormwater piece of things. We went up along Main Street. That was something that we had talked about a lot before, and I know Ian talked about that's a consensus that we have in here in the community, that some improvements need to be made along Main Street. So one piece of things is that the city has a piece of property on the corner of First Ave and Belleville Way that's been bought with stormwater funds to help manage some of the development that's happening here. And upstream of that stormwater property is also a failing embankment that the city is already looking at how to repair that embankment. So you have some good folks here within the city that's working hard to make improvements. And that embankment repair will help with the development along the stormwater property there. We also noticed that that private service alley road, it has some undercutting because when that property was developed, a curb and gutter wasn't added there along that private property. And so you have some undercutting up under there that would need to be repaired to support future development on that 100 Main Street parcel.
Can I just orient folks? B is actually the Main Street. For those of you who can't, you don't fly over this place in a helicopter. So B is the Main
B is the service alley.
Oh, I'm sorry, D is the service alley. Just next to it is the Main Street on this left, and A is that drainage pond.
So this, that building that's right underneath A, that's that historic building steel building. And so it's just upstream of that. So if you've seen orientation, this way is upstream, this way is downstream. And so if you've seen over there, some of the parking deck is going over there. And then there's been some improvements made around A, and that's why it's shown as under construction right here. And so there's some stormwater infrastructure that's been placed in that property that we would be working on to help develop that into an opportunity for some retention of development. Did I go too far? I don't think so. The other thing that we saw is Camp Creek. A lot of folks have been in and around Camp Creek. It's something that the community loves. And in some ways, the creek's kind of been loved to death because we have these access points, these natural desire paths that we have all along the creek that's caused some erosion along the banks. Now there's also erosion along the banks just due to that curve that comes from the railroad and then down the creek. And so there's been some restoration projects here before, and they're really There's been some restoration projects here before, so if you see some rocks and things in the creek, that's from a previous restoration project. But those restorations haven't held up for whatever reason. We have some speculations on why that might be and some ways to manage it in the future. But long story short, we've seen some damage in there and some repairs that could be had along the creek. We also see this constructed wetland here. And there's additional, what looks like groundwater resurgence that's come up since some of the installations along the playground and things like that. We think there may be a historic stream that runs along through downtown Wilburn. And so this wetland is really thriving, and there may be an opportunity here to do some expansion with the trail network, and also for additional capacity for development in the future. Okay, so orientation here. This is the old concrete plant. And here we have the park area. Here is the creek. And then right alongside the creek is that constructed wetland area. And this is actually the old stream bed. And then at one point, it was moved over here. And so this area is kind of being leveraged for some additional stormwater capacity. And then these blue lines here, this is the floodplain all along through here. And so this is circled because this is an opportunity for some restoration in the park to restore that into a healthy riparian area and have a natural recreation area for folks to really enjoy. So boardwalk and things like that, and intentional creek access points so that we can protect the banks. There it goes. So this is our little engineering sketch. Looking at how that would look through a cross section of the creek. Now this is exaggerated. It's got two different scales, horizontally and vertically, so it wouldn't actually be as deep as it seems like it looks like on the drawing, because that's been exaggerated for more engineering detail. And then that's mirrored over here in these sketches. These are also exaggerated. And so this is that constructed wetland area that we would be looking at adding some intentional riparian plantings and wetland plantings, native ones, and then potentially adding a boardwalk over some areas of it for better trail connectivity and access, especially over to that 22-acre parcel. And then we can also add some educational signage, make sure we do armored creek access so that it doesn't have that undercutting that y'all are seeing right now, so that people can really enjoy the creek without causing damage. And then just to show a little bit of the engineering work behind this, it's not quite as pretty as the other side, but this is where all the real work comes in, looking at the different storage volumes that you can have in here, and a couple of the considerations that we would have for how that installation would look as we progress forward on it. This is the creek through here. Here's the railroad. Here's the spur, the greenway spur. Here's that constructed wetland that could potentially be expanded for additional storage. And here's a tiered wetland that we could put on the other side to support any development that happens over here. Here's a little bit of what we think that might look like, just some examples. So here's another engineering sketch of how we would look at that tiered wetland on the opposite side over on the 22-acre parcel, opposite of the current park. And here's some armored access points that help protect the banks. And then some different boardwalk options that would go through that natural recreation area for engagement.
We're really excited about this opportunity as a landscape architect. The variety of kind of edge conditions and ways to also like move through this space, but also look at like moments where we have overlooks and places to sit with varying sizes in the space. Yeah.
So a little bit more of what we saw, and this is kind of teeing us up for some additional discussion on connectivity and access across the two different properties. So these pictures are from A. I should have flipped this around. And these pictures are from B up here, and then just to orient, here's the park, here's the creek along here, here's the railroad. And here's up here in this main core downtown area. And so this is up on the railroad bridge. So this is the scour that's happening. This is the creek over here. This is some scour that's happening along the railroad bridge. And you can, I don't know, from the perspective, you can see how dug in that is and how much material has been scoured out there. And then it's coming all down in here along the creek in the park. And then there's also this debris. The reason the city hasn't removed this debris is because it's not their property, it's the CSX railroad property. And so the city can't go in and remove this. It's owned by the railroad. They would need permission, which can be really difficult to obtain. And then over in the wetlands area, so this Rainbow Bridge area and the boardwalk that goes up through Killian Hill, this is in a natural wetland area, so it's an environmentally sensitive area. And there's permitting associated with anything that happens in this area. And so thinking about connectivity and access, I don't know if you want to go into that or if you want to talk a little bit more about the stormwater center that happens there.
Yeah, I think that from here we're going to move into kind of heading west, so to the right to the 22 acres. But this whole area with Camp Creek is that interface between the city park and those 22 acres. So I think anything else you want to say about the stormwater?
So looking at the different locations, I know we heard a lot on our Monday open house in the evening about just when you look at a bird's eye view of the property and you're not in it and seeing what it looks like from the ground. We heard from a lot of folks consideration for location of the parkway over here versus over here. One of the reasons why we wanted to show it right here, well, a couple of reasons. One, this is such a beautiful, amazing area that y'all enjoy a lot. There's a natural noise buffer there from the trees and from the wetlands. It's a really natural, beautiful space. And then up here,
and again, sorry, these images should be flipped.
Yes.
The bottom two go with B, and the top two go with A. Sorry, y'all.
Over with the CSX Railroad and this crossing right here, if you put the connectivity right on this spot next to the CSX property, that would give you justification to go talk to the railroad and say, hey, we're putting a bridge on our property. While we're doing the hard armoring of the bridge, can we also go in and clean up some of this debris and do some hard armoring for you as well? Because you're going to be right next to them, and that gives you a good talking point with them to go ahead and do some of those repairs. Now, due to the level of degradation on the creek, that's why we're proposing hard armoring. That's really what it means as it turns that corner to help repair the creek and also prevent that sediment dropout and erosion that you're seeing along the park. So I think now,
Yeah, just to hit the next slide, just to kind of. So again, we're just thinking, going back to big idea of planning for the future. And as maybe more, there's this 22 acres is activated. We're just thinking about the future and if it made sense to have a connection over for like emergency vehicle access, like whatever, if it's vehicular access over, even if it's just emergency vehicles, where does it go along this whole interface of, this whole Camp Creek edge to this 22 acres? Again, just to go back to what Jennifer was just saying, is it the extension of Railroad Avenue or down closer to CSX Bridge? So she just was noting the reasons why it'd be easier to to do these improvements around, that are needed around the CSX bridge, if we were to pull a connection down to here. Also, you see the shape of the floodplain here, it kind of balloons out into the, there's wetlands up through here. And so this is just an easier crossing from top of bank to top of bank here, opposed to up here. There's the grade challenge. There's grading difference between here and here. And then this whole area with the wetlands where the Rainbow Bridge is right now and the boardwalk, that's a lot of challenges to create any kind of emergency vehicle access through here. It would impact the Rainbow Bridge area. And also this is a privately owned parcel between the end of Railroad Avenue and the city-owned property. So that's kind of why we landed on this, and we were talking to folks during the sidewalk on Tuesday about that, a potential future connection where it really makes the most sense in this southern area. But again, that's for future connection. What we heard, going back to what Quinn was talking about with the consensus, like what was their kind of consensus on this week, it was outdoor recreation and trails and event venue. And so we're looking at kind of near-term options for these 22 acres. That is really kind of I would say a lower impact, very environmentally responsible, lower cost kind of interventions on these 22 acres. And we were, this area, again, talking about kind of environmental considerations, site considerations, this whole, and these are contour lines, all these white lines. And so there's a really kind of dramatic grade change between the area close to the railroad, right from here. This is kind of a terraced bench that can be accessed, that's accessible up through here. And then, so if you're standing up at the top here, you are in the tree canopy looking out over the edge here. So this area, here's a photo of it on the left, showing the view kind of right on that kind of terrace area overlooking into the trees. And there's a company called Go Ape. They do design, build, operating, liability, all of that for like outdoor adventure courses like that. So that's a company like this city could engage with to bring some activity into that zone. Then looking at the concrete plant area, this area is open. This could be again, low impact revenue generating event site, and would not require any removal of trees. It's already open, it's pretty level, and so we see that as an opportunity for the city here's the photo from Monday night on the left, so you can kind of see that big open area. Again, you can activate this space, have ticket events, and without taking down any trees. Pretty, again, low impact, low cost, and near-term interventions. But to get to there, how do you get there? Coming across the creek, what I was talking about is more complicated than just using the road that exists off of Killing Hill. But that road could use some improvements both out at Killian Hill and just along it. And so along it, what is the vision for this parkway? The parkway is a very narrow, calm, winding through the trees. We don't call it a road, we call it a parkway because it's a route for vehicles to kind of move through the site to that event space. And we would actually, I think, narrow it up, curb it up from what it is today, line it with more trees, and look at introducing a shared use path adjacent to it. So the shared use path adjacent to it for nice and wide, 12 feet for people walking and biking, all of that. That would be part of this kind of larger, finer grained trail network. So the thick brown lines are the existing paths, along the Camp Creek Trail is here, and then the Spur Trail is up here. So we look at, adding these finer grained kind of trails through these 22 acres.
Good question. Have environmental studies been done to see if any remediation needs to be done on the cement plant area for habitation or visit?
That's something we have not dug into yet.
So we don't know.
Don't know, yeah. So I think that kind of summarizes like this like near-term vision. And so I think more studies are needed in various areas to make this happen. What you just noted, and thinking about the parkway and access off of Killian Hill, engaging with vendors like Go8, for example. So this isn't happening tomorrow, but it could happen in the near future with some additional studies. So I'm going to hand it off to Eric, who's going to take us kind of a big step back to think about priority projects.
All right, thanks, Christine. So we've talked a lot already about stormwater and about the 22-acre concrete site. And now I want to, as Christine alluded to, step back and start to add more detail to what Ian led off with, which is how does all this tie together and what's next? So we've been here, this is our third time here since February. We came out in February for a week to look at, I'll show you in a second, but we came here in February to look at not only the 22-acre parcel, but the park, Main Street, and even all the way up into Old Town.
Uptown.
Yeah, Uptown, thank you. We came in May to talk about Main Street, and now we were here to focus on the 22-acre site. So yeah, that's the 22-acre parcel, Wilbert City Park, Main Street and the associated development that goes with that. How do we connect Main Street all the way up to City Hall and Uptown? So I'm showing you this because all these relationships matter. Sequencing matters, and I'll get into the details. But I also want to emphasize, like, this is a huge area to look at, especially over 3 weeks. And so we've done some reflecting this week about the feedback we've heard specific to this parcel, this project, but it's also been relating to Wilbert City Park and what happens in Old Town. And we feel like we have consensus and excitement around moving this forward, moving Main Street, the curbless design of Main Street and the associated development. There's strong consensus, there's excitement in the community for that. The city wants to move this forward. And as Ian mentioned, we want to do things. Part of our goal this week was to make sure that we keep our options open in the future so that we can revisit a lot of the things that can happen in the 22-acre concrete site and in Wilbert City Park and elsewhere. So we're starting to think about, okay, what's next? And I want to dive into what next looks like. So one of the first things that we heard, and this is an idea that we discussed with the city, is a Main Street demonstration project. And so what that means is we've heard consistently from the beginning on Main Street, you've got the 90-degree parking that's fronting 1910 Public House, everything, Haven Bodega, all up and down that block of Main Street between First and Railroad. We've heard most people don't like it. And they don't like it because it doesn't feel safe, and we have experienced that ourselves because we go to Haven Bodega every morning for coffee. And backing out is precarious. It's not safe, and it's not something we would recommend. And so when we came up with our design for the curbless Main Street, we proposed parallel on-street parking, which is much safer, also takes up a lot less room. And so this demonstration project, what we're proposing is taking basically a quadrant, if that, of the parking spaces in front of Haven Bodega and 1910 House, and basically restriping it so that it's parallel parking, and then you've got kind of a parklet space closer to the sidewalk. And we've done that kind of project. Landscape architects do something every year called Parking Day, where we repurpose a parking space and make it kind of a parklet. You know, you add planters and seating and things like that to really make it kind of a temporary nice space to be. And so we work with the city, and we think that's something that we can do really this summer. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, and it could just do it right in front of those businesses. It could expand kind of up in front of Music and Me. If that's successful, like it could go to the other side of the street, but it's like quick build, just some paint, kind of mock out what that curbless flush street design that we developed with y'all back in February, just laying it out with some paint before the construction actually happens. So to get feedback on it.
But that's not reduce the number of parking spaces we have right now?
Yeah, so the parking garage is coming online in September, so it's kind of timing it with that. Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, there's a lot of enthusiasm about Main Street designing it to be curbless, much more pedestrian friendly, much more shaded. And there's a stormwater component that goes into that, which I'll dive into in just a few slides. But after the demonstration project, and really concurrently, we think that we have most of the information that we need to move forward on this. We've been meeting with stakeholders over the course of our 3 visits and in between 3 visits since February to move things forward that would help Main Street move forward. So I think that's something that can kick off pretty soon, and we've been talking, 18 months or so. I mean, we still have to determine the schedule, but that's something, you could see the fruits of that probably sooner than anything else other than the demonstration project. So there's another project that's a little bit longer term, but for connecting a shared use path from Main Street up to City Hall. And that's again reflecting the community value of connectivity and people wanting to be able to walk and bike more places. And it starts to create a connection between all the energy that we're building, all the activation that we're building on Main Street and in the park. And you've got a lot of energy here, and now you're making it more comfortable and safer to get up Main Street. And it's going to help draw people down into this space as well. So it's...
Mayor, while you're on that, could you talk about the connections to the existing trail and what you're talking about building help with the bigger regional trail projects, how that all works together?
Right. So, we've talked about, right now you've got a very great successful greenway here, the Camp Creek Greenway, and it heads up towards Killian Hill, the spur does. And there are one of the priority projects in the Gwinnett County Trails Master Plan project is the Norcross to Wilburn Trail. We've been involved with that project. And it is intended to eventually come down just outside of this park. And we're also looking at making shared use paths along Lawrenceville Highway eventually, along Killian Hill eventually. So you basically have almost a perimeter. And this is like that lower southwestern corner of that perimeter. And so now you've got a nice big loop that you can use, and you also have connectivity eventually to other parts of the county. And then I think the phase 4 of the Main Street effort would be as we, in future planning efforts, start to think about the 22-acre concrete site and the park and how those relate to each other and how both of those relate to Main Street. I think extending the curbless streets to the park and the road would be the fourth phase there.
Yeah, kind of where 1 and 2 are, is more of the priority to do that upper block between First Ave and Railroad Ave, and have both sides of the street activated with like ground floor retail. But then as that's done, we see where the 4 is, it coming down to where the 4 is, down towards the railroad across the street from the park. So that block between Railroad Avenue and the railroad could be similarly transformed later on.
Yeah. And so I'm showing you Main Street first because it's setting the stage for a lot of development and activation efforts outside of Main Street. And this is what happened in Sulphur Springs. We got the public realm rights. We set the stage to attract the type and character of development that city wanted. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And you'd be the expert to compare Sulphur Spring versus Lilburn, but I would say, in my estimation, I think Lilburn is better positioned than Sulphur Springs because we have people, I mean, a lot of the stakeholders we've been meeting with are raring to go. We're working with them on the look and feel and the desired character on Main Street so that we get that traditional Main Street feel and so that it works with the design of the curbless design of Main Street itself. So when I start to talk about how things are tied together, this is one piece of that. And I've listed, I'm not going to go into the details of each of these ideas, but if you've been here in February and May, you probably heard us talk about 57 Railroad and the assemblage at First and Main, and 100 Main Street here. That's the empty parcel across from 1910 Public House and all those developments, and then getting the back of house right. So making sure that this B space that works behind all your businesses on Main Street not only accommodates parking and loading and unloading, all the things that go into the functionality of these businesses, but also making sure we're taking care of music on Main and the other things that are happening there. Sir?
Can you tell me geographically where E is again?
E is right here, so it's just off of Railroad. So here's the antique store.
It's right behind the antique store.
Yeah.
Is the steel building?
The steel building is right here.
It's the space between the antique store and the steel building.
So I never heard that part of the discussion, so thank you.
The purpose of that, that little square, is that there's going to be a lot of people walking from the apartments up to Main Street into the park. And as Eric was mentioning, all the B space, the loading, some parking and other sorts of things are happening behind house. And that square is designed to make the walk nice. We don't want people looking at all that sort of back house. It just makes a really pleasant walk back and forth between the apartments, the park, and Main Street.
There's probably only space for a couple.
Yeah, it's not a very big space, but it's
not apartments. It's small housing of some sort.
Yeah, tiny homes or maybe some couple little townhomes. But it's just to have a front as you're walking to the park.
One of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about, especially in the first week back in February, was this concept of missing teeth along Main Street. The way that you keep people engaged in a streetscape and a walkable downtown is to avoid having big parking lots, for instance, in between two different sections of stores. And so we've got a lot of work to do to fix that. But that's the purpose of those houses. We don't want to put commercial down there because our commercial, we've got to be very, very focused on 1,000 linear feet on Main Street to Railroad. That's our commercial district. If we start allowing commercial to creep down that side of Railroad Avenue, we lose the synergy. People want to be, we end up with things like attorneys' offices and vacant storefronts if we start to lose that focus. We have 1,000 linear feet of commercial downtown, and that's our focus. Another great thing that has come out of this conversation, 127 Main Street, y'all remember there used to be a house there. I think Jimmy used to own a business there. There was a whole, it's now privately, the city doesn't own it. However, through this process, we were able to stop a tragedy. And I call it a tragedy because this is our focus. This is our commercial block. And the private owner, without partnering with the city, without partnering with the Downtown Development Authority, without this process, had no option but to build one building at the corner. He has to deal with stormwater on his site. Those stormwater regulations are unbelievable. There's no other option. So he was going to build another parking lot that faces Main Street, besides between Music on Main and his restaurant. Well, through this process, we said, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We need this block to be that. We want storefront, 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 no missing teeth, no more missing teeth. And so we're gonna work with him to put his stormwater to 106 First Avenue, which the city already owns, as a way that will prevent him from building another parking lot off Main Street. So there's tons of value. I just want y'all to know that behind the scenes, it's not just drawing pretty pictures. This is our leverage to make things happen. And people are listening, even the private property owners.
So I just want to echo the importance of a city-run regional stormwater plan, because every one of those little sites would have had to have a miniature little storm feature on it. Every one of them would have to have a little parking lot on it, and there'd be driveways up and down. By taking a more planning approach, the parking can get put in the garage along the street, and the stormwater can be done elsewhere, and then we can get an intact series of retail places, which is so much nicer than sort of that suburban individual parcel type approach. So this is where it really pays off to do planning.
I was going to say earlier, if you go back one slide to this, I just want to highlight that this is an older aerial, and underneath the D, that's the Porsche line development, so the multifamily with a parking garage. So going back to Jenny's comment about Railroad Avenue and missing teeth, we were thinking about that experience of walking from the parking garage to all the businesses on Main Street and making, trying to use kind of the redevelopment opportunities in that B space behind the antique store in conjunction with the frontage of the distillery. That whole area, what we have in our mind is making sure that that experience from walking from the parking garage to the businesses is a nice experience.
And so, as Jenny and Ian mentioned, there are dependencies that if we want that traditional Main Street feel with the contiguous facades, the pleasant, the comfortable, safe walk that we heard a lot of support for, our district-wide stormwater strategy is helping us to do that. And so we've been working since before this week to figure out what those opportunities are. So yes, this is 127 Main Street, and then this blue square is a parcel that the city owns, and we envision bioretention at that spot to take care of the stormwater requirements on this site. In addition, it's not just bioretention. I think we envision like a small seating area. It's something that can be planted nicely. We as landscape architects love to geek out over landscapes that can do multiple things, stack the benefits. And so in terms of the planting design, making that attractive, making a comfortable shaded place to sit, kind of a green oasis, I think is what we've called it. So I think that's one opportunity. Another is along Main Street, that empty stretch that you have basically from First to almost Railroad. We have worked with Jennifer and Emma Dewberry to figure out what needs to happen stormwater-wise on Service Alley, and how we take care of drainage, how we repair that street that's suffering from some undercutting, so that stormwater can take care of a good chunk of, if not all of the stormwater needs for the development that comes on 100 Main. 57 Railroad. So as the old steel building gets repurposed, re-envisioned, there's some space down here that doesn't all have to be taken up by stormwater, we think, but at least some of it can be used for stormwater. So, and we have to have proximity just in terms of the way the water drains. This is the best place for it.
Is that the parking lot?
Yes, it's the parking lot across from the park. So for anybody who took a walk with us on Tuesday, was that Tuesday? For anybody who took a walk with us on Tuesday, there's already, you can even see it in the aerial. There's a pervious parking lot right here, and this is the park, and this is the parking lot that's across from the park. There's a lot of opportunities for what this could be based on staging of the projects. And what this future space may be designed as, but you have an opportunity for green infrastructure of some size and some type on this property, and you have so many options for what that could be.
So in addition to these discrete spaces that we're describing, like this space that goes with 127 Main and Service Alley and this property, we're also integrating stormwater into the redesign of Main Street. So on the right, you see an image, again, with as Jennifer noted, it's got a little bit of an exaggerated vertical scale.
A lot of it.
A lot of it. But on Main Street, if you are redoing your sidewalk and your street, we're envisioning using things like soil cells to help capture and infiltrate stormwater, while also providing open soil volume for these trees. It's like the best possible thing you can do for street trees in a downtown situation like this. The soil is not compacted. We've seen studies that compare trees that grow in this environment to just your typical tree that gets planted in kind of a tree box or a tree well in a downtown street. And these give you all the benefits that you like to see with your street trees in terms of cooling and infiltrating, slowing down stormwater, providing a sense of place. So we're thinking about these things with our stormwater engineers as we're redesigning Main Street. And again, that gets back to spaces that give you multiple benefits in the same space. That's one of the big things for us. And then I also want to touch on a few things that we're thinking about stormwater in the park, which you've heard already about the Camp Creek wetland expansion and restoration, the stream bank restoration. Again, that's doing multiple things too. That is not only providing more capacity for further development to happen in Uptown, so it's addressing stormwater needs beyond just Old Town, but over a larger area. And that's really important for the growth of Lilburn. But it's also providing opportunities, as Jennifer and Christine mentioned, bringing people closer to Camp Creek, having a better connection with it, making it more visible, providing educational opportunities. So that's, I think we're trying to maximize what we can do with the types of stormwater and streetscape interventions that we're proposing here.
And remember, these engineering sections are exaggerated vertically. It's not like a ditch someone's going to fall into. It's more reflective of the image on the top there, the last
Yes.
edges.
Yes. Yeah, and so this is just kind of a summary of everything I just spoke to. So,
And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about so having an overall stormwater strategy really gives you options as far as funding opportunities that you have. So I know we've mentioned some about the city constructing stormwater solutions for development. That's an opportunity for the city to have developers pay into a program that benefits the long-term maintenance of that property. And so they would be paying into a system that allows for that maintenance. The other opportunity that you have along Camp Creek and with stream bank repairs and anything that you do within the park is that there are a lot of grant opportunities associated with this repair and revitalization of riparian areas. There's a lot of different grant opportunities from the federal level down to more of the Atlanta level. And so there's funding opportunities that happen with each of these, and having that stormwater strategy allows you to go after those funding opportunities. So this really sets the city up for success in that area.
So in conclusion, thank you for saying, for our presentation. Just want to hit on, okay, well, what's next? What's next? Again, we want to focus on Main Street and building upon, these businesses that are right here, and setting up for this demonstration project right and kind of in front of these businesses. We might just do with paint again, just right in front of them, just take a couple spots until the parking garage comes online, then do more up in front of Music of Maine, to go across the street. Again, play it by ear, depending on what makes the most sense. It's just paint with low. Quick build installation is what we call it. So while that's like you will see that out in the real world happening, behind the scenes, we're getting survey for this whole area. We're going to be progressing the flush street, curbless street concept towards it's like 10% design, which means we're getting into CAD, laying it out, moving towards construction documents. For the Main Street, from the intersection of First and Main to the intersection of Railroad Avenue and Main. Also at the same time, we're looking at that green oasis is 106 First, behind 127 Main, right around the corner, for the Stormwater Pocket Park, again, moving that towards construction documents. And then finally doing design review of the Main Street architecture as those property owners are advancing their projects for those parcels along Main Street. So those are some of the things that we are going to be up to this summer, and then we're coming back at the end of August. The last week of August is an opportunity for us to update you on this progress so that you can see how we're chugging along on the Main Street kind of Old Town area with the projects I just mentioned. So with that, again, thank you so much for coming today and staying through this presentation. I want to open it up to discussion. Any comments, questions? First of all, good job.
I'd like to add one little thing. On the demonstration project, we want to show folks what it might look like to have parallel parking on Main Street. But what do we do with the space we reclaim? So we could put tables and chairs and things out there, so the dining area for those businesses will expand into the street. Much like once we get wider sidewalks and so forth in the future, they can do that. So there's more space for commerce, I suppose, and socializing out in the street. And you probably saw that in a lot of cities during COVID. You remember they couldn't go inside, so they expanded in the streets. It's that kind of idea. I'm kind of excited about that because you'll see more people using, those outdoor dining and entertaining spaces.
I would just like to suggest if you, as we talk about wetlands and a nature center or nature area, The Big Haynes Creek Nature Center in Conyers is a wetland area, and if you haven't seen that, it's been a slow progress as far as the development. And when I say development, it's really not a development, but as yes, and it's been a slow process, but it has become a very used area that's still very natural and beautiful. So if you've never seen that, take a look at that area and kind of envision maybe what the nature center or wetland area at the concrete plant could look like.
There's also, if anybody's been to the Dunwoody Nature Center, they recently also did a boardwalk expansion with some
Where
additional
was it?
green access.
Dunwoody.
Dunwoody Nature Center.
Oh, okay.
So that's another relatively nearby opportunity to go kind of see what potentially it could look like in real life.
I thought the sort of next steps slides, I think are well thought through and suggest appropriate, moving forward, but not at an unusual pace. I'm happy for that. But I don't see any next steps that we embrace and retain this week's work for the park. So I just don't want that progress to get lost. I don't know how we're going to make sure that these placeholders are not forgotten and move forward on that. So I don't have to repeat this.
Yeah, that's a good point. We had to talk about some of the critical areas in that big picture that Eric went over, because we needed to know the sorts of potential programs that could happen everywhere. We kind of know what would happen in Uptown because we've done those sorts of projects elsewhere in the country. But this is unique. This is a park. But the cool thing is that now we have a menu of things. We haven't agreed on them all yet, so that's going to take some more work. But the really good outcome of this week is that whatever program is done, the stormwater strategy will support it. So now we can go forward with the stormwater strategy with confidence, knowing that whatever comes out of the future planning efforts, it can be accommodated. Not just the Main Street area, but any changes to the parks can be accommodated, and same with Uptown.
So in a way, it would be encouraging if at least one of the next steps, maybe the last of the next steps, includes something into the park that has been born out of our discussions.
Well, one of the things I think is the entertainment area and a better connection to Killian Hill to, for concert venues or events or whatever in the concrete plan. So that maybe we should add that.
And I almost think that as, when you buy a new house, they tell you don't renovate before you live in it a little bit and see what fits and what you need to do, what you need to keep and what you need to change.
I just don't want to do this again in 3 or 4 years and say, oh, we've got to start from the beginning.
I think we should add that, but we should add that bullet, because what we've talked about is actually us having conversations with Jill, because my understanding, Jill, is you've been approached for ticketed events, space for ticketed events. And so I think that's one of the next steps, is working with Jill to understand what, potential vendors would need in that concrete plant to move forward to do any environmental analysis like view flag, and to really think through what it would mean to come up with Killing Hill into that space and out. So some studies there just to move that forward.
I think you need to study before you even think about it.
Yeah. So,
I think the other piece of it is that having an event venue there will help bring in funding that will support the flow of progress on that parcel.
We did have a meeting last night with the Gwinnett County Department of Transportation Director, because Killian Hill is a county road. And so that was good, really just to introduce him to some of the concepts that we're talking, that will need Gwinnett County support moving forward. And it was a very positive meeting, and I expect the start of a really great relationship as we move forward to see, is that roundabout feasible? What kind of improvements are actually feasible? So again, another benefit of a planning process like this, we're able to get the stakeholders and private investors to the table while we're doing it, and they're part of creating the solution. It's incredible buy-in that you can't get any other way.
So when we met with that fellow, he was very open to some of the things that we heard from the community, that Killian Hill is very dangerous to cross. It's excessively fast. People feel there's danger there.
there's a school on there, the kids have a hard time crossing, the trail ends there, it really should be crossed. And he was very appreciative because we explained what else we're doing. So it's just not us coming to them complaining about their street. That change to that street will complement everything we're doing elsewhere. And so he has the big picture now. So I think the county will be more receptive to, for example, making some sort of traffic control at that intersection of Killian Hill and the Parkway. Also, further towards Lawrenceville Highway, you'll probably recall there's 2 lanes coming from Lawrenceville Highway towards the park. And we experienced it ourselves, where it comes together and people are speeding and jockeying and it all jams up. And so we spoke to him a little bit about potentially removing one of those lanes up to maybe Church or somewhere like that, so that he's concerned to keep his intersection working at Lawrenceville Highway, but we don't have to have the externalities of that intersection permeating all the way through the community, creating a big barrier. So he asked us if we wanted to go forward with some of those things, draw them up, come present them, think through the traffic ramifications and safety things, and that's exactly what I want to do, help cross the street so that that trail through the park can get across Killian Hill and up the trail that Eric was talking about that's part of that regional plan. So there's all of these seeds that are getting planted all over the place for cooperation and grants and all kinds of things that go beyond some of the things we would just normally talk about when we talk about the 22 acres. So those seeds are planted, and I think it'll be very constructive.
Does the county have a plan to expand into a 4-lane road in that area?
No.
No, they do not have a plan to do that. They expressly said that's not their intent. I think historically that was their plan, but I think their culture and their preoccupation with moving tons of cars everywhere is starting to change and be more city friendly. So I think it was very open to kind of quality of life, safety things, walkability, trails. So I think the culture is changing at higher level DOTs, which will benefit a lot of the input that we heard from the community.
One comment I would make, maybe on behalf of the City Council, and as we looked at what we've done this week, you might ask, so which of these are we going to start next month in that 22 acres? And the answer is probably none. But the reality, what this week will give us is maybe a structure to not do something stupid in the next couple of years with a piece of that property, where some developer comes to us and says, say, I'd like to buy 3 acres of it and do X. As a council, we can look at what we've done this week and what will come out of this week and say, wow, that really fits with what the people have already said would be good. Maybe we ought to consider it. Or we can look at it and say, well, that's the dumbest thing we've ever seen. Why don't you go somewhere else? Because we now have a vision, at least, not necessarily what we call a plan, but rather a concept of what that 22 acres can be for us over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And so we won't do some stupid thing, hopefully. And to me, that's plus the stormwater aspect of it, that's crucial. But the other pieces, I like again, fill it in, all the stuff that came out of this, or I don't like it. It's easy for people, we've gotten the input now, and so we as a city council can step back. But I think from what you saw this morning, the emphasis is Main Street, downtown. We got to get that up and out of the ground. I want to see some buildings. I want an ice cream shop. Those are the things I want to see happening before 22 acres gets a whatever it is. And so hopefully, the city will see it that way, that we didn't miss Ian and Christine and haven't seen them in a month, come on back. No, this has real long-term planning for us as a city, and especially to keep the council and the mayor from doing stupid stuff, because golly, they're experts and we're not. Dr. Batterton's here, one of our other council members. He's a lifelong dentist. If you've got a dental problem, he can fix it. But, the stuff they do isn't his expertise. It's certainly not mine. And so we need to hear from people that do this and think about it day in, day out. because that's how we'll get much better ideas. And once again, I'll say it, it'll keep us from doing stupid stuff, because it's easy to do stupid stuff.
So to make a great city, we have been saying it takes a village. Good joke, by the way. But it really does. We do city planning all over the country. But our initial ideas when we came here and what we've shared with you today are different. And it's different because we had a lot of input. We had a lot of people who were very, very knowledgeable about the community, sharing their values and so forth. So that really steered things. And so it is a cooperative thing. We know how to design streets and so forth, but you guys know your values, your history, and your aspirations. And so it was a really good collaboration so we can move forward with what folks want soon without precluding what they want in the future and keeping that optionality open. Especially we got so many ideas. You saw them up there about what could happen in the 22 acres. So that needs more work. But whatever happens, it can happen, and we're not going to preclude it. And that was the beauty of this process this week.
So just to go back to your comment, I'm going to state this and see if you agree. It's yes, keep moving forward with Main Street, but don't forget about the 22 acres. And so I think when we come back at the end of August, you get to say, did you forget about the 22 acres? Has any further studies or conversations happened about it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Is there going to be a report out of all of this that you fellows can share with the public?
So we are, both from when we do very early in early May and this week, we are scrolling to prepare a report of what these 2 weeks, what came out of these 2 weeks, yes.
The key about reports like this, and it goes back to the gentleman's comment, is not just what we're talking about, but why, because if circumstances change, you need to know the reasoning so you can make intelligent decisions. So those are the 2 key parts of any report will do.
I'd like to say something. I have attended all the meetings before through this, and the village thinks of building townhomes. And if people could have seen this presentation today, of how much sense this makes, there is no townhomes, there is no dog park, there is no nothing. You've got to have this before you can even think about that. This needs to really be put out into the public of exactly why you're here today. Because I've sat through them all, and today it's like a bubble off the me. So I think that's what's important. People have just had so much bad development. They're just real leery to give you a half of a chance. And if people would be more forthcoming and attend some of these meetings and see the culmination of it all, I think you would have the building behind you. And it's hard to get information out. We talk about it all the time, every meeting here. Is every meeting here in the city. It's just another boring meeting. Well, no, they're not. If you keep going and keep going, and you may go to one bad, but there's going to be another one, and it's going to all fit together. The puzzle is going to fit. And today, the puzzle fits for me. And I'm the village.
Dr.
I was going to say, the 22 acres sounds good, but I have this belief that water will flow downhill. And we need to get all the standing water out of the city as rapidly as possible. I'm not a big fan of wetlands that have water remaining simply because of mosquito abatement, if nothing else. Mosquito abatement is going to be a big part of our problem over there if we ever develop it. Because I don't know if you've been around here in July and August, but they're pretty prevalent and they're mean.
So that came out during the meetings.
They're mean.
And
we need them gone. We need standing water gone.
Strategy.
A big component of that is if they're poorly designed. If they don't have native appropriate plantings in them, the mosquitoes can be a problem. So we want to really intentionally design it such that it all works. So that it's designed well for sufficient movement of water, it's deep enough, it has the right plantings in it, it's a good habitat, and all of those things really need to come together with an appropriate design so that it works to reduce the mosquito population.
So what
I think
actually
the benefit of the
breaks
city
this
being in
deal?
charge of it as well is they can maintain it properly.
Yes.
Whereas property owners that are responsible for maintaining their own stormwater, that is not front of mind for a
I
business
mean,
owner.
everybody in Gwinnett County is familiar with privately maintained detention ponds, which are mosquito magnets. I mean, we've all lived next to some of those, and it can be a really big problem. So the benefit of the regional stormwater solution is, one, you're getting funding from those who buy into that program for the maintenance, and two, you're able to maintain it to the city standards rather than relying on a private development to maintain it. And we all know that that hasn't been working.
And just to add on to what Jennifer was saying about the right type of plantings and the right type of ecology. So to drill down on that, what that means is using native plants to attract predators of mosquitoes, like your frogs, your dragonflies, other things that will eat them. So that's a big part of that.
We were out by kind of the one area that is a little bit of a wetland area. Saw a very healthy stand of tadpoles in the water there, which are what eat your mosquitoes. I did not get bit over in that area, but the minute you got me on that concrete plant where they have like the old tires and things laying about, we have mosquitoes there. So, you know, we won't eliminate them. They are native and existing, but there should be, if done correctly, a balance that, you know, we're reflecting the natural balance that there would be within the old town area. All of that will either be below ground, so no mosquito access, or will have under drains associated that draws water down and doesn't allow ponding above ground.
It'd be great to involve experts as opposed to those of us that.
Yeah, and then if you have mosquito problems and you call us and you say you guys gotta fix it, we'll come out and fix it. So, but we should design it properly. You shouldn't have that concern.
I wanted to follow up quickly on what you said about getting the village behind this. This is being recorded, right, Jenny?
Yes.
It's being recorded, it'll go on Facebook. So I think that's part of how we want to get the word out, and then you all can help us with that too in your conversations with anybody. I know we saw some folks over the course of the week who either couldn't make it or had to leave early, so anything you can do to convey what's going on here, and I know Jenny and her team will do that too, but word of mouth always helps.
Sorry, work on you, Jimmy. What about you guys, city council and your office, putting together a not longer than 5-minute video clip? Nobody's going to say an hour and a half, I'm sorry. But few. Not enough. We'll listen to an hour and a half. That would summarize what's happened and where we are now.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great idea.
Put it on the website.
I don't know if 5 minutes is even the attention span, it might have to be 3. But we will take that advice and do it. I think that's great. And as soon as we have, we can do that now. And then as soon as we have their report, they have to have a minute. We're still not sure if Christine has poison ivy. They have to have a minute to breathe when they get home.
Poison ivy.
Yes.
I've never broken out in my life, but I was up in it, and I know that the more you're exposed to it, the more, so good.
So, yeah, any ideas like that, we'll do it. I think a quick video makes complete sense. So, and we'll build up our website, keep pushing people to our website. Rebecca has done a fantastic job pushing out information, getting plans posted on the website, trying to be as transparent as we possibly can be. And Jimmy, as you see, it does matter to show up and be involved. It matters.
The folks in Wilburn that have their septic tanks all going bad because of infrastructure should realize what they're talking about.
Yeah.
We were built as an old city, we're all having problems even with our private property. So it makes sense to do this before you do anything.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree that planning is good. It's not always, it's an easy conversation, and it shouldn't be. It's going to be messy. If you care about this community, it's going to be messy, but you have to participate. Otherwise, we're kind of sitting here drawing things out because we know we need to move forward, not backward, but it requires your participation. So we're so grateful that you guys are here and that you showed up this week. We really appreciate it.
So in the last 2 minutes, I want to thank you all for coming again. We literally couldn't do it without you and the others. Stay involved, and I also want to thank the city staff for organizing the event, the concrete plant, and doing all the stuff they do. You got a really
And
great city staff.
Benji and his public
yeah.
works team. The concrete plant did not look like the concrete plant. For once, Benji, have I ever said to you, this is too clean? I said it that night, this is too clean, it looks beautiful, but thank you.
So we'll be around for a few minutes if anybody's too shy to speak up in public, which I don't think is the case here, but maybe there might be one person. We'll stick around, but thank you again for coming, and we'll see you at the next event.